How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This is Mike, and this is going to be yet another chat topic for the movie collecting and fan community. Once again, this was suggested by our friend Jay Harvey, Blu-ray Jay, who comes up with some really good ideas. And this is about our influences of the kind of movies that we like, what sources and what people that we got our inspirations from when we were coming up as movie fans and all that sort of thing. So this kind of goes back to a lot of other discussions that we've had. So some of it's kind of repetitive, talking about where we got our first love of films, our parents and all that sort of thing, and how we got interested in seeing more movies and collecting and all that sort of thing. And I've talked before about how the greatest influence when I was growing up was my mother, who was really seriously in love with all the old movies that she grew up with in the 1930s and the 1940s, and especially the horror films. So she gave that gift to me. And I remember that I've mentioned this before too. I was very lucky. In 1962 up until 1965, there was a TV show on one of my local channels. It's called Way Out, and it was hosted by this guy who was dressed up like a ghoul. Called himself Trebor, which was Robert, spelled backwards. His first name was Robert. Anyway, Way Out was a program that showed all of the old Universal horror films and all the non-Universal horror films as well. Things that all the way from the early 1930s up until almost close to 1960s. Some of the science fiction movies and all that sort of thing. So it was on 10:30 p.m. every Thursday night, and for a while it was also on one of the weekend nights too. It might have been Saturday night, but I usually only watched it on Thursday. And of course, 1962, I was 11 years old, and I had no business staying up late to watch a movie on television. But my mom knew that I really needed to see these movies, so she let me stay up, and she stayed up with me. So that's where it all began for me. I probably wrecked my health because I started getting bad sleeping habits, staying up until midnight on a school night. Not a good idea, but that's where it all began for me. Of course, as the 60s rolled on and I got a little bit older, I kind of lost interest in a lot of the horror films, and it kind of went dormant for a while. During those years, I was getting a lot of my inspiration from these wonderful horror film magazines like Castle of Frankenstein. This is the first issue that came out in January of 1962. Now, these are not my originals because I threw them all away at some point when I was in high school. And then now I found them again in antique shops and things like that. This is the second issue, and this is probably my favorite of all time. Look at these. The covers are falling off of these. This is from 1964, Castle of Frankenstein, the special vampire issue, which is just really cool. Lots of great articles and pictures and all sorts of things. So as the years went on up into the 70s and into the 80s, I started getting most of my information from books that I was finding. In the late 70s and early 80s, there seemed to be an explosion of books, not just about horror films, but about all kinds of films. But I was sort of concentrating on the horror films. And I found this great book in 1978 called Scream Queens, in which I found all kinds of information about Barbara Steele. I never knew the scope of her film career. This listed practically every film that she was in. I had no idea she had made that many films. So that was kind of a revelation to me. Also, other books like these books are falling apart. This book from 1978, The 50 Worst Films of All Time. Of course, Harry Medved with Randy Dreyfuss, and they were, of course, being funny. They were talking about a lot of low-budget films and cult films and all sorts of things, a lot of which I had never heard of. But the movies that they were making fun of, I realized were movies that I wanted to see. So it started just opened up my eyes to a lot of things. They also wrote this book, The Golden Turkey Awards, and Son of Golden Turkey Awards. So it just went on and on. I started getting all this information is kind of jamming into my head. And then finally, this came out in 1981, and this book is literally broken in half. The first issue of Cult Movies by Danny Peary, a great writer and just a real champion of genre films and all kinds of low-budget cult films, and some film noirs and a lot of classics as well that he put in here. But this really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And now the guys, Jay and Harry Benson, I believe James as well, they all mentioned Siskel and Ebert and the TV show that they had going on for many, many years, starting off on the public television station and later on was on another station. And they all said they were greatly influenced by Siskel and Ebert. And I really was not. I certainly knew who they were. I was aware of them, and every once in a while I would catch their show, but I didn't watch it on a regular basis, and I can't say that they were, at least for a long time, big influences in my life. Now, I was certainly aware of Roger Ebert. I knew that he had grown up here in Champaign, where I live, and he came back to Champaign in 1984 and was doing a book signing at one of the local department stores when he wrote this book, A Kiss is Still a Kiss, which is a book of essays, interviews, and some of the actors he had met, like Robert Mitchum, Woody Allen, all kinds of people. And it's really nice little book. And he signed a book for me here. I hope you can see this. Is that visible at all? To Michael, see you at the movies. Roger Ebert, December 24th, 1984. I was 33 years old. Now, later on in life, I will say that Roger Ebert has become a big influence in my life because I started buying a lot of the books that he had written over the years, books of reviews. I remember every once in a while back in the 70s and 80s, I would pick up the Chicago newspapers, either the Sun-Times or the Tribune, and I would read Ebert's reviews, sometimes in the Sun-Times, sometimes in the Sun-Times, and Siskel wrote for the Chicago Tribune. So I did like their writing, but I can't say that I was greatly influenced, or I don't remember being influenced by them. But now I'm buying all of Ebert's books, so I've got quite a few of them here. The Great Book series, then his book on Scorsese, and then I have all of these movie yearbooks that I found in bookshops, used bookshops from 2005, one from, this is 4-star reviews from 67 to 2007, movie yearbook 2003, oh God, and then there's one for 2002. So, and this is the best of Roger Ebert, Awake in the Dark. It's one of the most recent things that came out. So yeah, I'm just kind of diving into all these things and thoroughly enjoying them. But the first book that I ever read that really got me inspired about movies was the first Movies for Television book written by Leonard Maltin. Now, he made a whole series of these books. The first one came out in 1969 when I was 18. And I think on the cover it said 6,000 movies reviewed that are available on television. It might have been 6,000, it might have been 8,000, I'm not sure. But certainly nothing like the 15 to 20,000 that would have in later editions. But it was a terrific little book, and I swear, I would not lie to you, I read that book from cover to cover. It just, wow, it exploded with information. I had no idea that there were this many films in the world that were ever made. All the actors and actresses and some of the directors that I was aware of over the years, I was reading almost their entire filmographies of their films that were now playing on television. And it was fascinating. So I learned a lot, and mainly from books. So those were my influences. Now, I have to tell you that in this cult movie book, it has an essay about Black Sunday, Mario Bava's Black Sunday. And of course, that was one of the main things that I just devoured and fell in love with. And I want to read to you. I don't know how many of you have read through this book or you've read any of these essays, but let me read to you what it says at the end of this essay in regard to Barbara Steele, okay? And this will help you understand why I am the way that I am about her and about movies in general. I'll read you most of it. Black Sunday is blessed with the presence of Barbara Steele, the most fascinating actress ever to appear in horror films with regularity. This was the English actress's first starring role. She was under contract to American International Pictures in America, but was loaned to Mario Bava. That's not true. She was under contract to 20th Century Fox, but we'll let that go. And she proved to be the ideal choice to play the dual role of Aza and Katia. Her beauty is mysterious and unique. Her large eyes, high cheekbones, jet black hair, thick bottom lip, and somewhat knobby chin don't seem synchronized, and as a result, her face can be looked on as being either evil, as in Aza, or sweet, as in Katia, depending on the beholder. Steele played heroines and villainesses with equal believability in numerous horror films after Black Sunday all over Europe, and earned the distinction of being the unofficial queen of the genre. One critic called her the only girl in films whose eyebrows can snarl. Variety said that she resembled Jacqueline Kennedy. Eugene Archer of the New York Times described her as a blank-eyed mannequin with an earthbound figure and a voice from outer space. Critics weren't the only ones to take note. Fellini used her in 8 and a Half in 1963. Her one-time husband, James Poe, wrote a part for her in the script of They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, which went to Susanna York once the property was taken out of Poe's hands. Jonathan Demme wrote a part for her which she did play in Caged Heat in 1974. Like a few other actresses who aren't box office sensations, and he gives a long list here. People like Caroline Munro, Linda Hayden, Beverly Garden, Tuesday Weld. Steele has a strong cult following. Her fans revere her for her talent, her wit, her emotional range, her intelligence, and her mysterious quality as much as for her beauty, and wish she wouldn't keep accepting minor roles in minor films when she should be doing significant work. After 20 years, her star has not faded, and it is because of Steele, probably even more than Bava, that Black Sunday, in which her screen persona was established, remains a cult favorite. Now, I'm reading this to tell you that I started out very young just being fanboy, and I am still that person. I have acquired more of an introspective and hopefully intellectual way of looking at films, but in the end, I am still the same fanboy that I ever was, and I hope that I will be that same person till I die. Those are my influences. Thank you for watching, and comments, as I always tell you at the end of these stupid videos, where is this, are welcome.